Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We begin our video with a story in which our OP worked as a cashier and was lucky enough to meet a rare species of Canadian Karen. It turns out they're not very different in various countries of the world. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My card declined? Here, take this crap back. So back in college, I lost my job due to my school schedule conflicting with the hours my boss demanded I should work. It was holiday season, so I decided my best bet would be to find a retailer that was looking for seasonal staff and look for another job in the meantime. I end up finding a very popular bath and body store in the mall that's hiring. You know the one. First few weeks, everything's fine. I'm getting the hang of it. I know the products well, the discount's great, and I haven't had any real wild Karen incidents until Black Friday. Black Friday, I get scheduled a 12-hour register shift. Not the worst thing I could be doing for 12 hours. Most people were pretty pleasant and just got excited to get holiday shopping underway. Cue Karen. The location I worked at was just over the border into the States from Canada. She immediately comes up to the register with probably easily $400 in merchandise and slams it down in front of me. I tried to remain pleasant and asked if she found everything okay and if she needed anything wrapped. This was the conversation. M is me, K is Karen. All right, so we're looking to wrap all this up today? Well, that's your job, isn't it? Am I supposed to wrap it myself? No, ma'am, but sometimes people put these into other gifts so they don't always want them wrapped. Are all the same scents going together and being wrapped, or is there another way you'd like them separated? Are you actually a R word? Just wrap them up. Yes, ma'am. I'll get right on that as soon as we complete the transaction. Your total today is X amount of dollars. Will you be paying by cash or card? Card. Did you put my discount in for coming from Canada? I'm sorry? We don't offer a discount for Canadian shoppers. I do apologize. You're lying. I always get a discount for being from Canada. Let me call over my manager and confirm that I didn't make a mistake. Give me one moment. Call over the headset. Manager tells me that's never been a thing. I'm sorry, but I spoke to my manager and we've not ever, nor are we offering a discount for Canadian shoppers. I do apologize for the confusion there. Ugh, fine. Just run my card and do something useful. Okay, ma'am, just go ahead and slide your card for me and we'll get this all wrapped up. Card declines. Me, speaking quietly, I'm sorry, ma'am, do you have another form of payment? It says this card was declined. What did you say? How the F do you expect me to hear you over these people? Speak up. I now speak loudly. Your card declined. Do you have another form of payment? You really needed to announce that to the entire line? F you. You can take all this crap back. Karen then proceeded to pick up a lotion bottle, one of the glass spa ones, and whip it at my head. That one got her escorted out of the mall and banned by security. I, on the other hand, was fine, took off my apron and walked out. The money was so not worth it. Here's your gentle reminder not to be a jerk to retail workers this holiday season. Happy to hear she's banned. Throwing something at you was probably the reason, but her language and abusive behavior alone ought to have been enough to ban her. And our second story. HR expects me to work for free. I completed my graduation from a pretty prestigious university in my country and moved back home as my parents weren't doing well. Although I had an attractive degree, I had no previous job experience or connections, as everyone I knew moved on from the dead-end city I was living in. I applied for internships, tried walks-in to no avail. Finally, a friend shared a job posting for a sales job at a prestigious publishing firm. Not a job I was going for at all, but at that point in time, I was desperate. I go in for the interview and had a great time meeting the team. There were a total of 3 rounds with people being cut in each. Now, the stipend they were offering was already extremely low, $215 a month, but I figured I can move on to better places or even go higher up the company with time. Within a couple of days, they called me with a job offer. I was absolutely ecstatic as I could finally start contributing to the house, albeit quite measly. We discussed timings, shifts, and then, just as she was about to hang up, I asked, "The salary is the same as what was posted on the job site, right?" She said she had no idea what I was talking about. She was HR? and that I should be grateful for getting a step in so early in my career. She went on about the training they provide, which would cost me thousands anywhere else. Again, it was a sales job. The connections I would make, and the exposure. Finally, she said I was expected to work for free. At this point, I was speechless and asked for how long. She said at least 6 months until I could prove my mettle. I politely said no, and the floodgates came loose with her calling my generation entitled, how we didn't value work, expected to be given everything on a plate, etc. At this point, I simply hung up. She called me a couple of times later, but I ignored it until she called me a third time offering me $100 a month. I said no. More yelling, I blocked her. A couple of months later, my uncle, who lived in the national capital and had a business, decided to open a chain in the city and recruited me to help around the business and learn. And yes, he did pay me. Much more than I deserved, to be honest. I also updated my LinkedIn profile. A few days passed by. My uncle called me to the office, turned his desktop around so I could see the message. It was HR messaging him on how rude, unprofessional, and destructive I was, and how I left them hanging and cost the company valuable resources. I was speechless. After I told him the whole story, we had a good laugh. Needless to say, I blocked her from my LinkedIn after that. Thank God it was your uncle you were working for and not a company who didn't know you and might have believed her. And our next story. Petty lawyer doesn't leave well enough alone. This happened around 10 years ago. The office building in which I work sits on the very end of a row of separate but joined older buildings in a small Midwestern town. Parking has always been problematic as there's only 24 spaces shared by about 10 to 15 businesses. While these are public parking spaces and anyone can park in them, they had always been an effort to keep them free for customers by having all employees park in the private gravel parking lot behind the buildings. While we were not one of the lot's three owners, for well over 2 decades, there had been a common understanding that we could park back there because they'd rather not take up spaces needed by paying customers. My vehicle at the time was small, so I chose to park in the gravel lot at the very end of the mostly unused access alley, right on the corner where no other car could fit. This meant that not only was I not using a customer space, I was not taking any space from any other of the employees either. One day, while parking in my usual spot, an attorney who rented an office in the same location came out and angrily demanded I move. The attorney and I had a bit of history as she'd been the counsel for the company I'd worked for previously, and since she was a lousy attorney, the company had parted on less than amicable terms with her. It was also common knowledge in our town that she was just an unpleasant person to deal with. I refused to move, pointing out that since I was technically parked in the alley and that it was a public right-of-way, she had no legal standing to tell me I couldn't park there. This pissed her off even more, and later that day she faxed a very snotty letter to my office stating she was the legal representative of one of the lot's property owners and demanded we stop parking in the rear. Rather than fight the issue, everyone in my office started parking in the public spaces out front, thus making it much more difficult for customers to find a convenient place to park. This didn't affect us that much because we're in a service industry that doesn't rely on walk-in clientele, whereas almost all of our neighbors were retail. As for me, since my day began early enough, I was always able to snag the public space directly in front of the lawyer's office, so not only did she have to stare at my car from her office every single weekday, none of her clients would ever be able to park in the most convenient spot. And our last story. Turning down other people's offers isn't going to help you in an auction. To start, I'm from a farming family as well as the youngest of 5. It's obvious that I grew up as a farmhand, as did my elder siblings. And while it's a different story altogether, you never messed with my 14-month elder sister. She's the strongest of the 5 of us, as I'm still aware. Anyway, there was an older woman who lived down the street from us. She allowed my dad to rent her 40 acres of land every year for a price. Don't know the details of the deal they made. Adding my dad's own 40 acres, that was 80 acres he could work with. This meant my parents could continue to save a lot of money for their own retirement. They're still at it, by the way. The older woman died, sadly. I don't know how, but her son, we'll call him Toombs, inherited the land. Guess what he wanted to do? Why, sell it, of course, at an extremely high amount. He decided that the best option would be to auction the place off. Well, plenty of farmers wanted that land. My dad was one. Here's the thing. Several people made huge offers, like several hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he didn't take them. Toombs wanted to try to make more from the auction. Even my dad made an offer of about $300,000 and was turned down. My dad took out a loan to get that much cash for the property. Granted, it wasn't as high as others, but again, that man refused to budge. Then came the day for the auction. My dad looks around, and all the people that could have and would have outbid him aren't even there. My dad gets that 40 acres of land without much of a fight and got it for about $50 to $100K cheaper than his original offer. Remember the sister I mentioned earlier? She's currently renting to own that very house with her family, and it's all because Toombs didn't take the money he was offered by the people that could have given him the most profit. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.